Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Council of the Town of Oakville. I'd invite everyone to rise and join Council in O Canada. Thank you. Please be seated. I will now give our opening prayer, followed by our moment of silent reflection, and then we'll begin our meeting proper. God, grant us understanding and patience that justice, truth, and honesty may be evident in our decisions. Make us mindful of the needs of the people throughout the town of Oakville. Help us govern with the wider community in mind, and so create in us a desire for progress and responsible action. We ask this in your name. Amen. All right, thank you, everybody. Are there any regrets for this evening, Madam Clerk?
We have regrets this evening from Councillor Max Kahn.
Thank you. Council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest tonight? Councillor Knoll?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, item number 5 on the Administrative Services Committee with respect to the appointments to the Kerr BIA Board of Management. One of the appointees is an employee of my company, and as such, I am declaring a pecuniary interest.
Thank you, Councillor Knoll. All right, Council, you have your minutes of the previous Council meetings of December 5th, the closed session of Council on December 5th, and the regular session of Council on December 12th. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Johnston and Councillor Demoff move adoption of the minutes. All in favor? Opposed? The minutes are adopted. We have no public presentations for this agenda tonight, but we do have a number of delegations, I think 6 registered delegations. Madam Clerk, would you call the first delegation?
Yes, the first delegation listed is A.H. McCallum regarding the motorcycle noise bylaw 2011-100, item 7 of the Administrative Services Committee of December 13th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. McCallum? Welcome. Council looks forward to your information. You have up to 10 minutes.
I'll try, I'm sure. Your Worship, councillors, staff. Your Worship, I'm really wearing 2 hats here tonight, but I keep my paper in order. And I would like just to put forward to you, first of all, my first hat. Tonight I'm also here as a result of a resolution by the Kensington Residents' Council, and they support this council in the strengthening of this bylaw. The Kensington, as I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are aware, is located at 25 Lakeshore Road West. And the concern we have there is regarding the unnecessary and the excessive noise which is produced by a small number of inconsiderate motorcyclists who are travelling both west and east on Lakeshore Road. These concerns are quite explicit, but at this point, it's not my commission to enlarge thereon, other than to remind this council that a very large number of my fellow residents, and they're like myself, they're getting pretty well into their dotage, they're completely dependent on the roof garden which we have for quiet, relaxation and repose. We front directly onto Lakeshore and are subject to disturbance of any background noise. Sudden and high decibel noise produced by traffic, especially this motorcycle traffic, is the main disturbing element to restoring the well-deserved repose of the residents, including myself. Your Worship, I can give you a copy of that, but I think you already have it from a previous discussion. I would like, however, if I may, with your permission, Your Worship, just to give you my own direct concerns regarding this. I'm a resident of the Kensington, and I've been a taxpayer in this community, on and off now, for some 40 years. And I want to reinforce the concerns expressed by this Residents' Council on some of my own information and comments. Elsie, my wife, and I, we have an apartment on the 3rd floor of the Kensington, and we overlook Lakeshore Road West, just west of the 16-mile creek. So you know exactly where we are. Traffic lights are located some 50 yards east of the Kensington, and we have the joy, if you can call it that, of a coffee shop located some 150 yards west thereof. Traffic lights 50 yards east, coffee shop 150 yards west. For reasons unbeknown to me, maybe the coffee, this coffee shop is a rendezvous for the motorcycling set or part thereof. I note part thereof because, as from my observations, the greater number of motorcyclists pass directly along Lakeshore without stopping at this particular coffee shop. The noise problems that we have result from certain types. Some of the guys, and ladies too also, who sit at the traffic lights, they slip their crutches, they rev their engines, and they produce an excessive noise. The adjective excessive is a crutch of this argument and will be, I presume. Noise is subjective, and without clear definition, excess cannot be determined. We do have in our present bylaw, you'll remember it, number 2008, a definition of noise from a stationary source, but you must now address the excessive and unnecessary noise from some inconsiderate motorcycle operators' vehicles. Noise can be well defined at a specific point, and the standards and methods of measurements are available and are ready for us to provide consistent results for determination of that noise. The current accepted standard is, I'm sure staff will tell you and elaborate, is SAE J2825. We have the problem that the stretch of the road across the creek from west to east affords a chance for those guys so inclined to race up through the gears. They start from Forsyth and they're back down again, go back down through all the gears before they stop at Navy. This is a great experience, I can tell you that, because 70 years ago when I was in the British Army, we used to do that. And before I went to Oakville, you had to pass the test, racing up and down through these gears. Now, I'm not so sure it's a great idea, but it was. This noxious behaviour and the resultant noise, by the few, not by too many, by the few, limits our enjoyment of our home as it does other residents of the building. In fact, some of our residents suffer in addition because there's reverberation between the high-rise buildings in the immediate locality, and that impinges directly on their units. As I noted above in the other submission, the quiet enjoyment of the garden by the residents is destroyed to a very large degree, again by this inconsiderate behaviour. You're talking about inconsiderate behaviour. Our gardens have a common property line with Lakeshore, and we're some 15 foot above the grade. This problem is compounded because you can have 3 or 4 motorcyclists all sitting at the traffic light, they're all there, gunning their engines, ready to go. And you can imagine what happens when that light goes to green. That resultant noise is magnified by the number of exhausts which are in that locality. Now, I wish to stress that the motorcycle clubs and individuals, some of them who come through town, do not, and I repeat, do not cause that noise pollution. They are considerate, and they clearly understand they're in downtown Oakville. Modified exhaust systems are in use by these guys to enhance the noise produced by the engines of the inconsiderate cyclists. This factor is well recognised, and the EPA will certify street legal systems for an exhaust system to reduce noise and air pollution. Noise produced by the original manufacturer's motorcycles with original components are not the problem. Original OME cycles are not the problem. The problem is the ones who are modified. I would estimate we're discussing less than 10% of the motorcycle traffic, and fears, and I've heard this expressed, would be classed as a town not friendly to motorcyclists by introducing a bylaw are absolutely groundless. Have no fears about that. This point was reinforced last October by Mr. Robert Ramsey, and I think probably he's here, our representative here tonight, who praised, and I repeat, praised the introduction of a bylaw by Edmonton authorities as a positive solution to this problem for Oakville, other municipalities, other provinces. The motorcycle industry does not approve the modification of street legal exhaust muffling system. Sure, I'm an old fuddy-duddy, but I was a keen motorcyclist. I drove motorcycles, thoroughly enjoyed it. I also went to Sheridan several years ago, got my N1 license, but the wife said, no bike, that was it. I wasn't allowed to cycle. Now, there are numerous authorities in Canada, in the States, who have passed enabling legislation in this matter. And our staff are fully acquainted with the EPA standards and the SAE standards for motorcycles. The standard in general use is SAE J285. Your Worship and Councillors, standards are already established, and you have the powers. It only takes political will to introduce the necessary legislation. Our police at the October meeting confirmed that they were ready, willing and able to help to reduce noise pollution, provided you gave them the legal tool to do it. That's my presentation, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. I too took that M1 license, and Wendy must have talked to Elsie because she gave me the same message. Thank you very much for your information. Councillor Duddick.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for coming out tonight, Archie. Really, really appreciate it. I know that when Councillor DeMoff and I first raised this issue, we had heard similar concerns and complaints, but not only in the area in which you're located, but also farther down Lakeshore as well and in other areas. And I also commend you for the fact that you're acknowledging that it is not the majority of the motorcycle users, but rather a select few that seem to spoil it for the majority. So thank you for your objectivity.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
Next delegation is Michelle Fisher, also here for Motorcycle Noise Bylaw 2011-100, item 7 of the ASC committee meeting of December 13th.
Michelle.
She actually emailed about 10-15 minutes ago that she's ill and is unable to attend, but she does support the bylaw that we're proposing on behalf of the WHRA.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, the next delegation then.
Next delegation is Robert Treasure, also here regarding Motorcycle Noise Bylaw 2011-100, item 7 of the ASC meeting of December 13th.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship.
Welcome, Mr. Treasurer. Council looks forward to your information. And if you can position yourself so the mic can pick you up,
Oh,
the people
sorry.
at home will be able
Yep.
to hear you too.
Thank you. Yes, I've attended all the meetings, I guess, from the beginning, basically. And also been into the office to speak to Kathy regarding the issue. And I think it always seems to be coming up that it's a very small, concentrated group of people, and as a motorcyclist, I do sympathize with them because I know how this stuff can go at some of these events and so on and so forth. I'm a little disappointed that the owner of the property hasn't maybe been a little more involved, or I don't know what level of communication the city or otherwise has had with him himself. But I mean, if something was going on my property like this, I'm sure that I'd be stepping right into it, especially with the reputation of a local business on the line. But short of that, I think a lot of the issue here with these, when we're talking about aftermarket systems and modified systems, a modified system is taking something and unscrewing things and taking baffles out and all this sort of business with these pipes. I have an aftermarket system on my motorcycle, which includes baffles and everything else that anybody be looking for if I ever got pulled over on the road, and spent a lot of money on that system to put it on the bike. Looks great. Sounds good. It's never bothered any of my neighbors. I've had a lot of communication with law enforcement in the past on the road. I've taken some training courses with the OPP as well, and different level private courses on motorcycling, looking to upgrade my skills all the time. So I think it's what a lot of it comes down to is, yeah, there are guys who punch the baffles out of there and bypass the catalytic converter or all these sorts of different things with these pipes. I guess to make them louder. They feel some people feel it's a safety issue. There is a lot of people still talking on cell phones, texting, disciplining children in the car. So we're very vulnerable on the road at all times in any situation. People have their stereo on. Some people believe the extra volume is a safety issue, whether or not it's not. Certainly isn't a replacement for defensive driving. But I don't really know if we had I'm a Oakville resident. If we had a bylaw like this, my bike would pass or not. It doesn't seem really loud to me. I think it's the riding style. This is what I was explaining to Kathy of a lot of these guys. I think their bikes will pass the test. It's what they're doing when they're revving it, which you can't catch them at that moment that they're engaged in doing that. And certainly there's been a lot of development on the lakeshore, so all those buildings are going to amplify that as well. And even doing a test down there, according to the requirement here, I forget the 2825. I think could even be skewed down there with the wind noise around all those buildings, the echo, things of that nature. And I also looked at the letter from Carl Grosskopf that Miss Kathy Best had sent to him. And they seem to feel that, it says right here, the requirement also restricts the production of unusual noise and excessive smoke already in the Section 75 of the Highway Traffic and Safety Act. So now we're talking about excessive noise here, most of it. I don't know about the smoke and all the rest of it. And again, they're talking about people that have taken the baffles out of their motorcycles and so on and so forth. And they seem to feel in this report that, as indicated above, they've had a lot of convictions under the Act. They've had a lot of success with it, and they don't see that motorcycles being seasonal and so on and so forth is really that big of an issue to them. So there's been a lot of convictions already, and based on the success of noise, and it's a behavior, and I think everybody knows it when they see a guy out doing this stuff. It's very obvious. I don't like it. A lot of people that I ride with don't like it. I'm a member of a local Harley Owners Group club. Got a lot of excellent members. We support the Aaron Oak charity. We go up there, just up the road here at Sheridan College. We've raised, I think I was saying before, not to reiterate, but $225,000 for Aaron Oak charity over the years. The kids love to hear the bikes. Actually, when we rode in this year, they said, "Oh, we're surprised. You guys were so quiet this year." Now, whether some of my fellow riders, the kids love it, but, I'm not saying. And I mean, there was 40 of us coming down Trafalgar Road to actually go to the graduation of these kids after they finished the independent living program over there. So we're doing a lot of things. I'm afraid, because of some of these characters, that a lot of the people in my club and my friends are going to be subjected to this. It's not just the test alone. It's the Lakeshore is a very busy area, even with tourism and everything. And I just feel I think a lot of them don't really realize that this is going on. as it is, and I think there's going to be quite a bit of outrage when they find out. And these are people that are they're not young kids; they're in their 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, all different age groups. Well-intentioned people going to be very disappointed that they're being targeted and singled out here in Oakville. They're good residents. And there's a real misunderstanding. I think it's going to create a lot of confusion. And even in Edmonton, with this test, the difficulties of the testing, there's, I think, as of June of this year, 14 of the 24 tickets had been challenged in court and had won by motorcyclists because of the ambiguity of this test, and it's not always in that controlled of an environment, and it depends sometimes if you're sitting on the motorcycle, you're off, but I'm not going to get into all the logistics of that. I trust that the law enforcement here in Oakville, being what it is, have done some background on this. I'm not critiquing it. I'm not out to do that. I just don't really know if there's been enough public awareness over this whole issue, and I'm concerned about the outbreak of it. And again, about the owner, down there not really doing too much of this. And what am I going to do now? So if somebody pulls me over, am I to take off my, mufflers off my bike, or I'm not free to ride around Oakville? I don't ride loud. I don't make excessive noise. The pipes, it's my personal property. I never saw anything on my license, so the majority of people probably wouldn't even know this is going on. I usually check my license every year for any changes or anything like that on it. If I don't see that, then I don't necessarily know. I was just lucky. I picked up the local paper one day and read through and noticed all this stuff was going on. I don't normally attend all these bike nights and things like that. And I'm not saying that this behavior doesn't go on, but I think that maybe this Section 75 and some of these things that are already unusual noise and all this business could be enacted instead of having a bylaw that targets everybody, that I feel honestly will intimidate a lot of riders from coming downtown, whether or not they've had success in Caledon. When I go to Caledon, it's a beautiful area, very popular with bikes. 4 businesses on the corner are all closed down. Now, I certainly don't think that's going to happen in Oakville because of some motorcyclists that are a few guys. But let's keep in mind it is just likely a few guys doing this, and I don't see where it's impossible to shut these guys down and pull them into line, or to work with the owner, or come up with a creative solution here without going through all this court expenses of prosecuting motorcyclists and all of the bad feelings that I think are going to go along with that. So that's really about all I have to say, but I do thank you for your time. I've enjoyed listening to Mr. McCallum. He's made some excellent points. Wouldn't discount any of them, and I'm sympathetic to all the people that are having to go through this and put up with the disturbance, and I hope there's some sort of a peaceful resolution that works for everybody. Thank you very much.
Don't run. Councillor Dudek has a question for you, and I appreciate your balanced view of the matter, for that matter. And Councillor Dudek's only the start. There's actually more than that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer, for coming out and, having taken the time to meet with myself and to discuss this matter further. Again, you had some extremely constructive and interesting points of view that certainly were of assistance in the drafting of the bylaw. The one thing I did want to address, though, to assist you in this regard is you made reference to the owner of the establishment, and had that individual not done a little bit more, it might have addressed it. Unfortunately, in the situation that we have in that particular area, it's the public roadway, and he has no control over that. And so therein lies the biggest problem for him, and they're not being disrespectful. They're not doing anything wrong in terms of the establishment, so he has no authority by which he can say you can't come here. And especially when they're parked on a public roadway, that's the problem as well. So I just didn't want you to misunderstand that.
Yeah, we one time had a event going on in Hamilton, like one of these bike nights years ago. When I first got my bike, I used to go to it occasionally, and they'd always say over, when you leave, please leave quietly, because this was right in a residential neighborhood, so we all
The-
did respect that. once we
Actually,
were
the
told.
owner did similar. He met with them and asked them, please, and the majority of them are that way. Unfortunately, as I mentioned previously, it seems to be a few, and hopefully, once they realize that there will be some sort of element of accountability, the word might spread. Let's hope so.
Thank you, Councillor Dudek. Councillor Demoff?
Thank you very much for coming out. You were at the Administrative Services Committee the
Yes,
other
yeah.
night as well, and I think the bylaw and police were indicating that the initial part of this will be an education component. So it won't be that people will take their bikes along any roads in Oakville and be charged. So there will be public education, and I know the police have been very successful with bicyclists and motorists in an education program, and have actually been recognized across the province for their efforts on educating both of them. So I think that's the biggest component initially, and it's not meant to target cyclists. And along the lines that Councillor Dudek was saying, when the bikes are stopped at any property, it's not an issue. It's only, as she was saying, on a public road allowance. So I'm sure the police would be happy to give you more information on the education part of it if you're interested.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for coming and sharing your information.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me speak.
Oh, Councillor Byrd.
So in your, I'm intrigued by your association, would you say the Harley Davidson's riders?
It's called, yeah, it's
Have
actually.
you sent any kind of email, or do you have a mailing list that you can sort of give them a heads up or what we're
Well,
expecting as part of
yeah.
the education program?
I don't really have access to their mailing list per se, other than things do usually, get spread around fairly quick in the motorcycle community. But yeah, I'm not
Well,
advocating for Harley Owners Group.
how do they organize? You mentioned they've raised, what, about $250,000. How is that done?
We do that through putting on a large event as a motorcycle
Okay,
ride.
I'm more concerned in the communications part of that. Presumably, that's a good news story. This is sort of an issue that would be of interest, I'm assuming, to your group. You found out about it, I understand, you said by somewhat accident, I guess, picking it up through the local newspaper.
That's right, yeah.
And we're going to need the cooperation of those that are the people that behave themselves to sort of ostracize or help us ostracize the misbehavior. And I'm thinking that your organization is the first one that I'd heard of that may be a vehicle to start that.
Oh, well, we're a factory, we're the largest factory-sponsored motorcycle club in the world. And we are structured, and it's a family motorcycle club, it's family-oriented.
Right.
So it's, there's all sorts of the sort of protocol involved with our club. Most law enforcement is familiar with us. We're not, the nature of the club, and I would try to get it around much as much as possible. But we're on the road with that charity event, and there's a lot of us. So I want to get caught in this web of whatever is going on here, because we're trying to do good race for charity. Somebody mentioned also at the last meeting that charities may even have to apply for an exemption for this noise, or possibly even have to pay a $150 fee for that. And I thought, boy, that might be taking money out of a charity's pocket.
No, that's the current bylaw for an event that is going to right to disturb. What appears to be, strikes me, sort of ad hoc type of opportunities. Primarily, it seems to be at the corner of Navy Street going across the bridge. That seems to be the attractiveness for a motorcycle. And I've never ridden a motorcycle, but it seems to be how loud can I make this thing between Navy Street and Forsyth Street, and then we hit on the brakes at the light. But that seems to be an attractiveness to sort of let it out if there's such a thing.
In these big gatherings, this whole thing, and this type of thing, it gets that thing going. I'm going to show you what I can do, one thing and another, and it goes on with men, women, everything. There's actually a lot of women riders out there now. Like we were talking about the last meeting, there's more riders all the time. So there's a lot of people that are affected by this. But I believe a lot of those bikes will pass that test. It's the riding style.
Right,
and the
you can help, what I'm looking for is you can help us stigmatize the problem with
Yeah.
the few that are giving a bad name, if you will, for
I
the
do whatever I
activity.
can.
Gotcha, thank you.
Promote it positively. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Treasurer, you've lit a fire of interest. Councillor Robinson would like to
Very much, Your
have a
Worship. Is
question.
it your group that very effectively and successfully and popularly raises money for eyesight situations? You ride for eyesight?
No, that is an independently sponsored event, the Ride for Sight.
But they're Harley drivers.
Yes, yeah, we are Harley specific. It's an owners group, yes. So many of us have our aftermarket pipes.
So some of you are involved in that.
Yes, I am involved. I've been a director of a chapter. I'm currently the safety officer at my current chapter. But I do want to stress, I'm speaking for myself, not for
Okay.
all of, Harley owners group, just for me.
Thank you. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, everyone. Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
Next delegation is Luc Fournier, Director of Policy and Government Relations, Motorcycle and Moped Industry Council. Also regarding motorcycle noise, item 7 of ASC of December 13th.
Welcome, Mr. Fournier. Council looks forward to your information.
Good evening. My name is Luc Fournier. I'm Director of Government Relations and Policy for the Motorcycle and Moped Industry Council. I understand that you've had a visit from my president a couple of weeks ago, so I'm going to go over some of the same items that he has. These are the member companies that we do represent, and these are all names that you're quite familiar with. We represent about 95% of the bikes that you see on the streets today. So basically, Oakville is not the first place in North America to be dealing with noise emissions. It's a topic that is quite popular across North America. And I'm being told that whenever municipalities conduct polls, noise comes up as the number 1 or number 2 issue that the population would like to see their council work on. Unfortunately, whenever we're looking at motorcycle noise emissions, given the fact that there was no specific standard set that could be applied roadside, it was all the police forces had to rely on very subjective methods of measuring noise, and that ended up costing a lot of money to both the riders and the municipalities because they always ended up in court. And as you're aware, that always costs a lot of money. And just to bring it back to the basic level, I want to make it clear that all new motorcycles that are brought into this country do respect federal regulations as far as noise emissions. Problem arise when there's some modifications made to the exhaust system or when some aftermarket products are added to the vehicle. But it's not all the aftermarket products that do increase noise. Actually, a lot of aftermarket products will reduce noise emissions. That's why I meet people and they ask me, okay, well, why don't we just ban aftermarket products? And that wouldn't work because of that specific reason. We're quite happy that the Society of Automotive Engineers has looked at that specific issue, and they have developed a standard called SAE J2825. We feel that this is a very practical, fair, and easy solution to administer. One of the things that we really appreciate about it is the fact that whenever that process is followed, we have a way of knowing that all motorcyclists and all motorcycles are treated equitably and fairly. It removes effectively all the subjectivity from the compliance and enforcement. And obviously, the other thing that we really enjoy about this is the fact that it is consistent with the federal pass-by sound emission standards that we adhere to. And just to give you an idea about some common noise levels, the motorcycles that we are looking at, the excessively noisy ones, they register in between a jackhammer noise and a rock concert noise. So this is the range of noise emissions that we're looking at. And these are the specific noise levels that have been established for 2825. So all motorcycles are measured at idle, and if they come under 92, there's not a problem. And then there's different numbers for whenever they're at a specific RPM. So 2825 has been approved by the industry. The Canadian Council of Motor Transport Administrators has approved this as well. We've actually gone across the country on a joint committee with the CCMTA, and we tried it in numerous municipalities. The results were quite positive. A couple of municipalities have adopted it: Edmonton, Bathurst, and Caledon. It's excessively positive in Edmonton. It has brought quite positive results. The numbers that I have as far as convictions is very high. I believe it was around the 90 to 95% success rate, but I could double check my numbers. A couple of tickets have been thrown out for different reasons, such as the sheet was forgotten somewhere, or the officer was not in court to present. So those are some of the cases that have been thrown out. In other municipalities, such as Vancouver, Winnipeg, and Fredericton, the process is used, the 2825 process is used, but given the fact that they've always won their court cases, they didn't feel the need to change the bylaw yet. There are some discussions ongoing with many municipalities that are looking at this. There are some discussions with some provinces as well. We feel that probably the three provinces that could move the quicker on this would be New Brunswick, Quebec, and British Columbia. Given the fact that we've been involved with Bathurst, Edmonton, and Caledon, a couple of the things that we saw that work great whenever a municipality is looking at implementing 2825 is to make sure that the officers are properly trained. And one other aspect as well is to make sure that there's clear leadership, so that to make sure that someone in the municipality does have the information, regardless if it's an elected official or one of the police officers, so that whenever there are questions arising about 2825, that there is somebody there that's ready to answer them. And what we saw that was really positive as well was whenever there's some strong outreach activities. For instance, if you have a place where you know that all motorcyclists will hang out on a specific day of the week, if you can have some testing done there, then it alleviates a lot of the fears that some people may feel toward this, because they can go, they have their motorcycle tested, and then they're aware if they pass or not. You know, you can have some specific meetings between rider groups and the officers with some of the specific shops. Once again, the testing clinics are good as well to make sure that the officers are properly trained, and it gives them a way to practice the training that they've received on this. And of course, it's great whenever you're able to allow a specific period of time for people to adapt to the new bylaw. So in conclusion, we feel that 2825 is a quick, easy, and accurate methodology to measure noise emissions for motorcycles. The equipment to conduct this is relatively inexpensive and easy to use. And we're quite confident that all the federally compliant stock exhaust systems will pass this standard, and we feel that it's a fair and reasonable approach.
Thank you very much for your information. Councillor DeMoff has a question for you.
Certainly.
I wondered if you, that's me. I wondered if you could clarify, Mr. Treasurer was saying that the noise levels when the bike is revved and it's just starting off would be different than when it was idling. So would this test be able to deal with those different noise levels?
Yes, certainly. So that's because, and that's the reason why you have a second test. You have an idle test and an RPM test. So when you go to the second test, it doesn't lie. Either you pass or you fail, and it's usually by a wide margin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
So just to confirm, you're comfortable with the bylaw that's being proposed to pass tonight?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Yes, we're quite supportive of this. And actually, as an industry, if we can help the municipality implement it, we'll be more than happy to work closely with the municipality on this.
Councillor Elgar will probably ask you for money.
No.
Thank you for coming tonight. I guess I'm wondering, if I had a motorcycle and had straight pipes, can I put a cutoff on it and then you wouldn't detect that?
If you have straight pipes, you will fail.
If I have a cutoff though, so it diverts to a different direction,
You will fail.
I would fail it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, there goes that plan. You're going to have to modify your bike. Anyone else?
Maybe you want to put stock exhaust system on your list for Christmas. Still have time.
Very good answer. Thank you very much for your information, sir.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the next delegation?
Our next delegation is Wendy Coburn, here to speak to item 4 on this evening's agenda regarding Halton Region Police Services Bell Antenna Co-Location Project for P25 Life Safety Radio System, Fire Station Number 1.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Coburn. Council looks forward to your information. And as I've told the others, if you'll slide over a touch so that you address the microphone, people at home will be able to hear you too.
Thank you. I was wondering if we could use, just the first picture. Thank you. But I won't go through everything. It'll just be for the picture. Yeah, there. Sorry. My 10 minutes started yet. Thank you. Hello, Honorable Mayor and Councillors. Thank you. I'm a proud citizen of the Oakville community. My home is on the southwest corner of Bronte and Rebecca. I had inquired about the telecommunication tower at Fire Station. No, you can't hear? And I'm not very good at public speaking. I had inquired about the telecommunication tower at Fire Station Number 1 when we purchased our home 7 years ago. I was informed that it was for the sole purpose of emergency response communication. I was resigned to the fact that the telecommunications tower is a necessity for our community. However, the 6 Bell antennas that have recently been installed will be transmitting for both emergency response and commercial use. The transmission therefore will be constant. Electromagnetic radiation is emitted off these towers. It is harmful to humans and especially to children. This is a case of not in my backyard, but for good reason. My concern is for the health and safety of my family, my neighbors, and the daycare located below the tower, and the firefighters at Station Number 1 who sleep directly below the tower. I have a quote. There is an overwhelming amount of evidence to be read which indicates the dangers of chronic exposure to low levels of electromagnetic radiation to people living within 500-meter radius of a cell phone tower. This is especially true of children because of their thinner skulls. In adults, the most vulnerable parts of the body are the eyes, testicles, breast, and an increase in cancer of these areas. Aside from cancer, chronic exposure to this type of radiation causes sleep disorders, attention disorders, anxiety disorders, and immune system disease. The World Health Organization recognized electrosensitivity as a bona fide disorder in 2005. End of quote. The National Research Council of Canada states cell phone towers should not be within 500 meters of community-sensitive locations. Terrence Young stated that the safety zone should be 1,000 meters. I am here to oppose the activation of the 6 Bell antennas that are about to be activated. I believe the vote is this evening to decide if they're activated tomorrow. I'm also asking that the town revoke the license for the tower because it is in a community-sensitive location. The license has also been breached with the agreement according to the grant and license point number 2 and number 14, assignment and sub-licensing. And number 3, the Town of Oakville telecommunications facilities protocol was not followed correctly. Point 4.2 and 5. I implore you to take the correct moral decision regarding this sensitive matter. I'm confident that we will build a better future together, and I'm aware that this is the wave of the future. I know that this isn't going away. I would just like to have it placed in a safe location, 500 meters away from daycares, away from firefighters, away from my family. I understand that it was there in 1996. I purchased my house in 2003. It was already standing, but as we learn and we know better, we try to do better, I believe. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for your information. Hold on, you have questions at least from Councillor Robinson?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming forward.
Thank you.
A couple of questions. I believe in a previous conversation that you and I had, you talked about having a discussion with a technician.
Yes.
Would you explain to council what that conversation was about?
Well, I've followed these antennas going up since day one, since I saw the guys banging on the tower. And so I was informed that 6 antennas were going up, that at that time, at the beginning of my investigation, it was either Rogers or Bell. Later on, continuing to show up daily, I found out that it was Bell. And I found out that it had been in the works for about a year. And the antennas, once they were up, there was only going to be 6. They could not place more than 6 antennas up because the tower is not strong enough, so it would have to be reinforced if more go up. And the gentleman told me, the technician that was in charge of setting these antennas up, felt that we weren't really at risk. However, these antennas are supposed to be facing straight out so that the transmission goes over your head. And he said it's a real problem when you see, in Toronto, you often see the antennas tilted down and adjusted downwards. And he said that that is more disturbing as far as he feels, as far as electromagnetic radiation is concerned. And as of Friday, there is a new unit there to provide more electricity to activate the antennas, and the antennas have been tilted down as well. So I don't know where that happened, but I was informed by the head technician installing the antennas that that should not happen. I didn't see who was working on it Friday or Saturday morning. It could have been, but they're now tilted as well.
My second question is, did you talk to the Oakville Fire Chief?
I was told to speak to Lee Grant about 3 weeks ago.
And how did that conversation go?
Great. He was very accommodating with information, and I was just starting to dig and find out, you know, how could I possibly get more information, hopefully stop this, start working on it. And Lee Grant returned my phone call, was happy to discuss this with me, and said that the fire station is not actually, the tower actually belongs to Halton Regional Police, so it's not his jurisdiction. It is on the land, but because I was calling to ask him if he could stop it.
So did the fire chief, or Mr. Grant that you were talking to at that time, did he confirm that he spoke in favor of this to the police, or did he take
No,
a
at that
position?
time it was that it belonged to the police, and it was not his jurisdiction to say what antennas went onto the tower or not.
And And he relayed that to you, that he
Yes.
didn't authorize it?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Councillor Robinson, is that it? All right. Councillor Elgar.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Over the years, cell towers have been an issue for quite a few years. And I find it very interesting that cell towers are controlled by the federal government. And I think I heard you say the MP, Terrence Young, has stated that they shouldn't be within 1,000
Which is a kilometer.
meters
yes.
or feet?
Yeah, meters.
Meters. Wow. 1,000 meters.
1 kilometer.
And the question is, did he tell you what he's going to do to resolve this issue going forward?
That is something that I found written. I didn't actually speak to him. I did email him and called him, but I haven't spoken to him directly. So
I'd be curious if you could do something on that, because it really is the federal government that controls this type of thing, like throughout all the municipalities. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your, Councillor Demoff.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And you spoke very well.
Oh, thank you.
How far away do you live from the tower? What's the distance, do you know, roughly?
I don't know, but for sure under 500 meters.
I don't know if you've looked at the town's new protocols. We're talking about
Yeah.
placing them 200 meters, not 500 meters. So I'm just wondering, I'm trying to get a sense of how far your house would be from that tower.
I don't know, I'm not good with that. Brian, what would you say? Probably just.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any others? Clearly show your hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
The next delegation is Brian Bell, also here for item 4 on this evening's agenda, the Halton Region Police Services Bell Antenna Co-location Project.
Mr. Bell, you're Mr. Bell. Yes. We have more Brian Bells than I knew. Welcome. Council looks forward to your information.
Good evening, Your Worship. Good evening, council members and Oakville citizens this evening. Name is Brian Bell. No relation to Bell Telephone or a family dispute that we're having on this issue. But I did want to come this evening. We actually my family lives directly behind the tower. So I would be probably 150 meters from the tower. So it has become, I've only found out in the last couple of weeks, reading in the paper about this, why this is a big issue. So do thank you for your time tonight, just to walk you a little bit through it. So in terms of where we're located, definitely behind it. We have the fire station directly behind us, and we have this beautiful tower, which you can actually see. If you could dim the lights, it'd be great to actually see my view from my backyard. So it's very prominent. When you actually take a look from our rear yard, that's what you see. The town really hasn't made any ways to actually hide it or try and find any barriers to make this really happen. So, in fact, whether you sit in our court on Ridgeside Lane, pretty much everybody from the actual prominent area. When you look at the O Canada that you had this evening, you can actually see it in the Bronte shots as well. So, in fact, we made this a prominence within the Bronte area, which is kind of an interesting thing. When we bought this house, we actually moved in June. We actually did the research in advance. I have my real estate license, very familiar with real estate transactions, and one of the first questions I said is, what is this used for? So we did the research. It was used for emergency purposes, not for commercial use. And there's a big difference between using it for commercial and using it for emergency. Those are two different ball games, and that was a big factor in our decision to move there because we had young children. So really, why are we opposed to this? I would say first and foremost, there's a safety concern. Any one of us could Google and actually see what the concern is around it. There's hundreds and hundreds and thousands of web pages on this topic. So definitely a concern not only for me, but also my family members and the people within the community. It is a major issue. First and foremost, that was not the original intent of that tower. It was not designed for commercial use. It was designed for the police department and for emergency response. So it's really important that that point is made because the terms have changed. We've changed how we're using it. We're changing it for commercial uses, and somebody is financially benefiting it at our expense as taxpayers. Second, it impacts property value. It does not matter how you look at this, this impacts property value without a doubt. I would say cell phone towers are almost equivalent to hydro towers. They're the new hydro towers of today, is the way I would view it. And probably the most important is, my background is I'm an urban planner. I worked as a planner. There's been absolutely no consultation on this. In the phone calls I've had, it has been told to me that it's the right that this can happen without consultation. That to me does not seem right. Something that's this controversial, especially when you look at what's happened at Third Line in Rebecca, all of the opposition with respect to that, it was very professionally handled, and there was outrage. So I'm not sure from our perspective as residents within Bronte whether we need to go that extreme, but if we have to, we will. It's just unprecedented that that has to happen. And why do residents need to actually get that upset, put that much time, put that much effort, when we already know that that's an issue? So when I look at the issues, one, I have two children. I have a 2-year-old, I have a 4-year-old. And if you ever want to talk about an experience that grounds you, it's your children. Each one of you, I don't know if you have children or not, but children reflect how you change and how your outlooks and goals in the world work. It's a game changer. And when I woke up this morning, I said, these are my children. Obviously, my wife they got their looks from their mother, but it's highly important to see that that changes. And I want to make the world better for my children and protect them. It's very similar to how the town of Oakville has a vision. You guys have a vision to have the best and most livable city or town. How is that possible when we're actually putting cell towers into residential neighborhoods? You're going against what the vision is of the town and the residents. So to me, there's a disconnect between what's happening there. And there's lots of headlines. Of course, they're being a little bit sensational on it. Wendy did talk about the 500-meter barrier. And also with respect to Terrence Young talking about the 1,000 meters. And I get there's all kinds of federal government should be here. Why isn't Terrence doing it? Why isn't somebody else doing it? Those are very valid arguments. But the reality is this is the town of Oakville's land. Unless I'm incorrect and you do not own it, that's a different ballgame. So I think each one of you has an opportunity to make a difference. And when I called today and talked to the various members, they said our hands are tied. They don't have to. The police service does not have to consult us. I just read the contract this evening. It kind of looks like it's slightly different. This is a licensing agreement. I find that hard to believe that the police and emergency medical response can do whatever they like in a residential neighborhood. That does not seem to hang for me. Why would I buy a house and have the rights for somebody else to dictate what happens? It just really doesn't fly. Property value, at the end of the day, when you have children, I don't care what my property value it's impacted. Will it get impacted? Absolutely. So the decision that I made 6 months ago to buy this house faces an 8 to 10% reduction in value. I know it. I'm a realtor. I see it all day long. I've been with clients. First question they say, where's the hydro towers? Where's the cell towers? This is a real issue. And when I bought the house, it was used for emergency. So that's a very different ballgame. So right off the gate, I can take a $100,000 loss just as a result of this $36,000 issue, which I was advised today, because of a trade-off happening further in the city for this to happen. So I don't know all the details. I don't claim to know all the details. I just know what's happening and trying to stop that. So what's my request of the town? Really, it's on behalf of myself, the people in our neighborhood. You guys own the land. That's something I do know. If the emergency and medical response units don't want to play nice, I find that hard to believe. I think you should take the time. We should delay it further and have some really good input onto this issue. There's lots of people within our area. I'm very disappointed only 2 of us came out tonight, but it's quality versus quantity tonight. And I know I'm speaking on behalf of many of the people in our area. You guys can relocate this. As Wendy pointed out, times have changed. There's a lot of change, and I think Bronte does need a little bit of revitalization, and adding commercial towers for residents in the area is not the way to go. I think there's lots of other ways to look at it. There's ways to put tree buffer zones in. There's ways to remove some of the noise some of the light pollution from the actual fire department. So I have a number here, but I don't want to cloud the issue with respect to what's happening. But there are ways that we can make this happen. And first and foremost, it's not allowing Bell to do this and really getting more input on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you for your information. Councillor Robinson?
Thank you, Mr. Bell, for coming. It was a pleasure speaking with you recently. I just want to make doubly sure that I think you have it. In fact, I think you've even stated it. But are you aware that there's a substantial difference between the Hopedale Mall issue, third line and Rebecca Street, and this issue? The fact being that the third line and Rebecca Street issue was on land that was not owned by the town.
Yes.
The town had no jurisdiction over that land. And in this particular instance, it is our land, and we should and do have jurisdiction. You understand that?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you, sir.
I think my point on that was that the public outrage with respect to commercial cell towers was more the issue. What I'm passionate about is that we have the ability to make that decision since we own the land.
Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Johnston?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming out. Just one question. You're comfortable with the cell tower for emergency use, as it was when you purchased your house?
I did, because I bought the property, yes.
So you'd be comfortable if it stayed that way?
Yeah, I'd have to.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for coming. Madam Clerk, is that it? That ends the delegations. That brings us then to your standing committees, Council. And we have a number of little housekeeping things to look after here. I wonder if I could ask two of you for a motion to receive the December 19th Memorandum from Environmental Policy and associated with the December 13th Community Services Committee report, and that's pages 1 to 2 of your addendum. I've got that from Ward 2, from Councillor Dudek and Councillor Demoff. Thank you. Discussion, all in favor? And that carries. I'd like the same thing for the next supplemental piece on pages 3 to 6, the supplementary information for Oakville's State of the Environment report. Same volunteers, thank you. All in favor? Opposed, if any? And that is carried. And now I'm looking for the same thing for the Administrative Services Committee, December 13th. This is a report to replace a duplicate Community Services Committee report circulated with the agenda, and that's the supplementary report at page 11 to 20 of the proposed procedure bylaw amendments, item 11 of the Administrative Services Committee meeting of December 14th. Councillor Bird and Councillor Johnston. Yeah, we're receiving it. Yeah. Same thing 3 times. Receiving a report. Everybody clear? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is received. Now, that, I hope, brings us to our Community Services Committee report of December 13th, pages 21 to 24 of your agenda. We need a mover and seconder for that report. Councillor Giddings, Councillor Demoff, thank you. All in favor? The report is adopted. And now, in pieces, in 2 pieces, we'll do the Administrative Services Committee report. Councillor Knoll declared a pecuniary interest with respect to item 5, so I'll take a separate vote on that. I need a mover and seconder for it. Councillor Johnston, Councillor Demoff, all in favor? That carries, and the minutes will show Councillor Knoll did not participate. And now, mover and seconder for the balance. Councillor Johnston, Councillor Demoff, Councillor Adams.
Could we, I'd like to separate the procedural bylaw item, which is...
All right.
For the purpose, I would like to add, there's in the memo that was added on page, I guess it's item 11. In the material provided to us, there's a page 13, I think it is, where it has, council may resolve at any time into a committee of the whole session by resolution, at which time the rules of procedure governing standing committees established in section 2.6 of this bylaw shall prevail, with the exception of section 2.6b precluding recorded votes. I'd like to include this to allow us to do recorded votes in committee of the whole. We've had a few times where we've had a big audience, we're in committee of the whole, we'd like to have a recorded vote, but we can't. We have to wait until we finish. And I think it would be a benefit to the public to be able to get that.
All right. Is there a seconder for Councillor Knoll? Councillor Robinson, we'll let you get on the order paper here. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. The balance of the item, the item as amended, I guess I'll call now. I need a mover and seconder for the separated item. Councillor Adams and Councillor Knoll, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That too is carried. Now the balance of the report. We have a mover and seconder. Any other separations? All in favor? Opposed? The report is now adopted. I now call your attention to the first consent item, which is the recommendation that as a result of illness and until his recovery, Councillor Max Kahn be authorized to absent himself from the meetings of council. Councillor Dudek moves it. Need a seconder. Councillor Adams. Any discussion? Councillor Adams.
We all wish him well and a speedy return.
I'm sure we all join in that sentiment. And let's hope he's watching. All right, all in favor? Opposed, if any? And that is carried. Now that brings us to our confidential consent item. It's my impression that you may be able to move this as given and not go into camera. Is that correct? Councillor Demoff?
Could we just clarify that the motorcycle bylaw was passed for the members of the public who are still sitting here, please?
The councillor is correct. The motorcycle bylaw has been adopted. And we won't think poorly of you if you find the rest of what we do not as interesting. All right. C1, do we have a motion from Councillor Johnston, a second from Councillor Elgar? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Adopted. The clerk tells me that I can now reveal. This is not it, is it? Oh, it is. What we have adopted is that bylaw 2011-154 be passed, establishing technicians in fire services under the Ontario Municipal Employees Retirement System, OMERS, provisions as normal retirement age 65. So there you go. Then, that brings us to our discussion items. And the first discussion item is our report, our quarterly report from Oakville Hydro. The recommendation will be that you receive the report, and here to present the report is the President and CEO of Oakville Hydro, Mr. Rob Lister. Welcome.